Yes, sir. How you expect to be great, but your hustle don't match. Listen. I hustle overtime, attempt to push the culture forward. This that real shit, make a meal with that little gift. Everybody on a hustle, we can make a real shift. So keep your head up, youngin', and just keep on moving. And if you ain't hustling, then I don't know what you doing. The time is now. I'm sorry, I'm not sorry.
Y'all look good on camera.
Gotta write my story. No, you can't have my glory. I'm taking all that's for me.
Hey, yo, man, it's another Saturday, and it's your boy Marcus Stone, aka Hustle, and we're coming to you live from Globe Life Park, powered by Fishbowl Radio Network and Bashani Radio app. And you know how we do it, man. I got another blazing show, and I got two wonderful guests in the building today. So we got a double dose of some intellect and I'm gonna call it comedy because I've been laughing with these two already, man. So without further ado, you know, my guests today are the pioneers and owners of the new podcast launching. I'm gonna say launching tomorrow. Launching tomorrow. Yo, the Mother to Son podcast. My guests, Mr. Jaron Jones and Miss Sandra Jones. How are y'all doing?
Man, absolutely wonderful.
That is awesome. I gotta say thank you for giving me the opportunity to highlight such a great podcast and forum coming tomorrow. I can't wait. I'm so excited about that, and I definitely want to talk about that and some other relevant things. But Jaron, you know what I do. Mom is not too familiar with it, but you know I got some words that I gotta put out there to y'all real quick. So you know I got a double dose, so both of y'all gonna have to answer these words for me real quick. Y'all ready?
We're ready.
All right. First word: unapologetic.
Hustle.
Yes. Come with it
today.
Yeah. All right. So next word: hustle.
Love.
Art.
Okay. Next word: legacy.
Creativity.
Ooh.
Always.
Okay. Final word. Y'all ready for it?
Yeah.
Change.
Now.
Exclamation point. Still a word, man. Still a word. What can I
do? Man, that's awesome. Yo, so look, my following knows Jaron to some degree, so I'm put him on the back burner because I want to know where he gets it from. So Mama Jones, the time is now. Introduce the people. Who is Miss Sandra Jones? Come with it. I've heard some stories now, so you know I want to hear from your perspective.
Me too. I can tell you now that you really heard from my biggest fan. I so we already know.
Yeah.
But, so I need you to just kind of be specific what you want.
So give me a background. What's your background? What do you do? What do you enjoy doing?
Okay.
Career path.
Okay.
You know, what's your legacy?
Okay. Well, I am a product of Winterville, North Carolina, a little small town, tobacco country, a small town where I had the opportunity to go to an all-black school for the first 8 years of my life. So that lets you know that I too experienced segregation in my life. So, but we had a wonderful world in our community, and I'm a product of that community where education was very important.
Absolutely.
Where we shared love and respect, and and really, I can tell you, I remember when everyone did that.
Mm.
Everyone in our communities did that. And I'm getting off on another conversation. But anyway, I am an actor, a writer, I'm an educator, um, I'm a visual artist, a painter. I love to try my hand at creating,
Wow.
and I have no limits on what, I just
Oh,
have.
hey, I believe that. I believe in multiple streams, multiple opportunities, and creating what your best version of yourself is. So, it is breathtaking to hear that from you, because it encourages individuals such as myself to know that we don't have to be bottlenecked into one pathway or platform to move forward. We can do it in various ways simultaneously, to create
Right.
what we are, and who we feel that we need to be for those that come. So I salute you, Queen, and I thank
Yes.
you for that, for sure.
Thank you.
Mr. Jones,
Yes, sir.
hey man, I already know your background, but reintroduce yourself, man. Come on, come with it.
Gotcha. I already introduced myself from a different lens, carrying on from how my carrying on from where my mom left off. All right, so I'm also a product of Winterville, North Carolina. I was raised in Winterville, North Carolina, tobacco country. So we were that next generation. So what was her, the first years of her schooling was an all black school. When I got to go to that elementary, well, what was the all black school now was an elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
That was the desegregated Winterville school. So I've been a part of the post where I've seen some of the history be hidden, put in boxes and thrown in the trash. And
Wow.
the alumni of the black school went and found those boxes and keep those relics because that's their history, that's their story. And so I've seen and been a part of that community where the parents remember what was and passed it down to the kids. So for us, we grew up knowing that, though we may not see that history, we knew our history.
Right.
And I grew up in a community that cultivated you knowing your worth, knowing that, the idea of supremacy is not a reality, and that your black skin is just as good as. And so I was poured into. My mom was my number one fan, my biggest cheerleader, and so was family and the community. We it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it took the village to raise the children, and so
Indeed.
that's
Yes.
kind of from that is who I am today. It's the reason why I went and got a PhD, because I knew I could and I was encouraged and it was expected.
Right.
And so sometimes it takes people seeing in you what you can become for you to believe it and even push through that fear to apply and go and succeed. And so I'm a product of that hard work in that community. So
Man, that's amazing. And you see, in hearing both of you speak, I hear the ripple effect, right? What was once poor, the determination, the perseverance to endure a particular certain set of circumstances, now replicated in the aspect of opportunity to then continue to go forward to achieve what that dream was, what those visions were at that time, so that individuals such as myself can have those opportunities, right? So I see the legacy piece. I see and hear the change aspect. But we'll definitely dive into that conversation a lot more here in a minute. But what I want to get to right now is this announcement, the Mother to Son podcast. Yo, look, y'all got me pulling my hair in here. Like, what? Hey, talk to me about it. How did, for one, how did this come to be? And two, it's something that I can definitely relate to. So give me the history. Where did this come from?
You want me to take a stab at it, Ma?
Oh, sure. I can talk. It doesn't matter.
You go.
I think, Marcus, that this is something that has been in the making for many, many years.
Wow.
Actually, you know, now I have to say this. I was 30 years old when I had Jaron. So I was not a very young mother.
Okay.
So I knew a lot then at the age of 30 that I would not have known, my ears stopped up, that I would not have known years before. So
Right.
so that's one of the things too that in the Mother to Son podcast, that's something I have to share. But again, I feel that I was so prepared because I was 30 years old. And I want to share with younger mothers the kinds of things that I did in raising my son. And actually, we were in a particular church. Some people have really used to ask me, well, what do you do? How do you raise your son? Why is he so well mannered? And they really did ask me those things. And I would say, to God be the glory,
Right.
and it really, really was. But of course, I did my part as well. But, and one other thing I want to make sure I get in here in terms of education, I went back to school at 40 years old to finish my undergraduate degree too.
Wow.
So that is part of what my son witnessed. And so all through these years, we have just had a lot of conversation, all opportunities. Again, I knew to have those conversations with him because I was older, because I was more mature, because he really brought a lot of focus to my own life. And my intention, my goals changed with having this son to raise.
Right.
And, very fortunate to come from a big family who love children, and we love our children and we raise our children. So I'm very grateful for all of that. And I kind of got lost, but that's where the Mother to Son, I think for me, it's been in the making for many years.
Yeah.
Wow.
I appreciate, you sharing that, mind. And it's interesting because even the way we're doing this is part of the intentionality of the Mother Son podcast. It's looking at, my mom's perspective and, her intentions in doing things, but also looking at it from the child's perspective of how they received it, but also what they were going through at that time too.
Right.
So things that we identified as a gap was these conversations aren't being had from, mother to son. And there's a big part of, a Black mother raising a Black son in a single parent home, so there are a lot of conversations where, she's had to, try to be both parents, and so how does one receive that? But I've also evolved over time to understand the why and been able to articulate that understanding. And so we saw that, how many young men get to see another, young man talk about that experience, what that felt like, where those young men don't feel like they're alone, where, like my mom was very structured and also wanted to make sure that I knew that she knew where I was, so there was some times when I wanted to stay out late. I wanted to, wild out.
Yeah.
And, but there were certain things where, she made sure that I understood why she needed to know where I was, why at a certain point in time, I don't need to be out, and so a lot of people didn't receive that part of it. They may have just received the order of, nah, you can't do that, and not understand the why behind it.
Yeah.
She always did a great job of the conversation, even if I didn't want to hear it.
Yeah, true.
The moment where my hope is through our conversations, one, we honor each other's stories and the parts that we played in both of us getting here, but also helping young men, young kids, or young adults have a better relationship with their parents through us doing a podcast, as we have a better relationship in a vulnerable space.
Right.
It's just, we're going to tell our truth. A lot of stuff is going to be, extended conversation. a lot
Yeah,
of, so excited about
we're gonna talk about the power between a mother and son. The power, and of course, it's the power between a mother and child. And today, I'm thinking of our old traditions. You know, the things you talk. The word legacy came up. The things
Right.
that we need to hold on to. What
Absolutely.
has been passed on to us. You know, we are our ancestors' prayers. We are that.
Indeed.
So what has been passed on to us? We have a lot of power that we do not exercise. I remember Jaron telling stories of being out, and he said he could almost hear my voice.
that yeah. Look, I understand that piece as well. Yeah, it's something about, you know, it's the similarities of when as my elders and my family would say, you know, is when you hear that voice of God, and in that sense, you know, in a situation, you're going to hear the voice of that individual that is teaching you to navigate, right? So it's that time to reflect, and you do that quality check within yourself. Do I continue forward, or do I deal with these consequences for not listening, right? So I understand that piece and that dynamic 100%. And then speaking with Jaron, you know, when he first mentioned it to me, I was like, man, that resonates with me so much, to the point, like, I'm ecstatic. Like, I'm excited for this podcast, from the standpoint that everything that I have been able to do, looking back at those times now, of when it was my mother and I, and the things that she had to do out of necessity. Some may have looked at it as neglect, right? But not understanding the total situation. There's times that I remember, you know, my mother was working 3 jobs at one point in time.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But you know, her need to do that in order for us to be okay, you know, was something that was necessary. It wasn't that she didn't want to be with me or take me to the park or to do these things.
That's right.
It was the fact that she had to do that for us to survive. But you never really truly understand what that situation is when you're going through it. It's at that point when you look back and reflect on those times that it became my greatest lessons, right?
Sure.
And what that has taught me, in a sense, is to, even though that I hold several hats, when I have that time, I have to be present in the moments currently, right? To give my kids something to hold on to. Not saying that my mother didn't. My mother is the reason that I am
you're able to do
the
this.
unapologetic hustle. That
That's right.
100%. There, she is that reason. Everything that has been instilled in me, I've learned from looking back. I learned it early on, and that's why this podcast, this what y'all are doing, I resonate with it so well, because it is 2 sides to that vision. It's 2 sides to that story. I had a vantage point just as well as my mother had a vantage point, but just to hear the dialogue is where the legacy and the lessons become, you know, more relevant. So, no, I applaud y'all 100%. So, I gotta say, I mean, Mama, she normally tunes in. Mama, if you're on, I love you. Thank you for everything. Because you have been that catalyst for me to be who I am.
Yes.
Absolutely. So, I mean, so I understand there's gonna be this dialogue between the two of you. So is it open to have other mother and sons come on, or what's the deal?
You know, I'm sitting here thinking how wonderful that would be. I'm thinking that would be so awesome. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think that the possibilities are endless, and you know, our biggest thing is, you know, is sharing those stories. You know, we all have stories.
Yes. Yeah.
Stories.
So can we get a little snippet? I mean, I don't want to take away from the content, but can we get a little snippet? Come on, Mama Joe. I know you got something. You got some nuggets.
Okay, so while you were talking, Marcus, and talking about your mother and her working three jobs,
Yes.
and talking about the change is now getting back to that word.
Yes.
You know, when your mother was working those three jobs, with the way things are in this country, it's, you know, on those three jobs, she was probably making so far less than she deserved to make, than she should have made.
Absolutely.
However, whatever she made on those three jobs, she was able to take it and provide for you and your brothers. I don't know if you have brothers and sisters.
Yes,
Do
ma'am.
you have brothers? Okay, provide for her family. So those are the kinds of things we want to bring up as well.
Mm-hmm.
What is given? What does it take? You know, how do we? A memory came up in Facebook yesterday that Jaron wrote 8 years ago. He was talking. He was saying that um, about them talking about the importance of education in his family and why he was where he was. He
Right.
said, when I did well in school, my mother would make miracles to celebrate this, right? It was so, I said, wow, that's amazing. This came up on the weekend of our podcast opening. And I thought about it, you know, that's the thing that we want to know. There are miracles to be had. You know, there is a power greater than us. And as single mothers, you know, somebody gave me a book called "Can a Single Mother Raise a Black Man?"
Mm.
I have never opened that book.
Wow.
I don't know why. It might be a good book. It's probably a wonderful book, but I never opened that book because why is that question? We have
Mm.
a job to do,
Yeah.
and we do a good job. And so those kinds of things too, we will address in Mother to Son, you know. And yeah.
Yeah. And the
But
concept of understanding sacrifice, so like you mentioned Marcus, like you understand now, and you understood then, but you appreciate it more. And also because you're a little bit older, you have a family that you and your partner, your wife, you're providing for.
right.
So it hits a little different, and so that appreciation is there. But even the understanding of sacrifice, like
Right.
that evolves over time, where you sit and you're like, man, how does she do this? Like, and it doesn't take a lot, like, the working of miracles. It could have been, she got enough she knew my favorite food was pizza. And at that time, Pizza Hut was expensive. You
Right.
going on a
It's,
12
it
bucks.
wasn't in our budget.
So, just the understanding of, uh, hard work and
Uh-huh.
also acknowledgement of, trying, succeeding, and being rewarded for it from someone who's trying their best, to give you, the life that you want to live. I joke but I'm very serious. Like, I didn't know that I wasn't rich
right.
until I left Winterville and saw people who were wealthy, and I was like, oh,
That's what that looks like.
monetary, and so growing up, given, the community, the family, the household, I was always rich. I was never without because I had people who believed in me, who poured into me. Like, I'm thinking about the fact that every Sunday after church, if we didn't go to Golden Corral,
Mm-hmm.
we would go to grandma's house. And people from all over the community, including the church family, but just folks would come by. We always cooked too much on purpose.
Right.
And my mom would make every child do or share one talent in front of the family. And we waited. It didn't matter if it took you 2-3 hours to muster enough courage to do it. You might have said a poem. You might have mimicked the preacher. That might have been funny, and mimicked the sermon. Whatever it was breaking you out of your shell,
right.
to show up, to contribute to the world. And so I've seen how those types of traditions have helped every family member that was in that space, and so not everybody has that, but it's something that we need to talk about, so how do you pour into your children so that they can think outside and think greater than what they think of themselves or own.
Think, see more than their circumstances.
Right.
You know, even young children need to be taught to dream, to daydream, and to see beyond, and to share stories and reading, and one thing, which since you brought that up about the performing, one of the things I notice about kids, they are so gifted and talented. And I guess, to a point, maybe even I was that way. Maybe we all have been this way. Maybe we don't tend to see the value of our gifts and talents for what they really are. And now, today, we are in a place where we need to let our children know that these things, if you can drive, that's amazing, that's wonderful. If you can dance, we'll say, oh, he can dance like it's nothing. It's something. It's a big to-do.
Right.
We need to start making bigger to-dos over our kids, because we have to give them that foundation to go out in this society. Listen, I don't know if I think some things are better or worse from when I was growing up in terms of people getting along. And there's a lot of growth. That's there's a lot to say about that. But
right.
in our homes, we certainly have to give our children the foundation. We have to stop and take the time. If we don't pour into our kids, who will?
Wow.
If you don't tell them they're great, who will? If you don't tell them they're awesome, who will?
Yeah.
So then if they're not told those things, they're subject to whatever someone says to them. They're subject to believe that they are thugs. I had a young person tell me the other day that he couldn't say yes because it was a white man's word. I said, it's the English language, baby. And you can't say it. Then, of course, when he started saying yes to me, I just had to tell him how beautiful he sounded. He has a beautiful voice, and I love it when you articulate. And I let him know I speak differently in school than I do when I'm at home. So I understand.
Right.
But you can master both. and so we ended up okay.
Yeah. No, that's so powerful. Hearing those perspectives. Because what I think about is, when you say about pouring in to kids at that age, telling them they're great. I mean, how can one be great if they're not told they can be great, and everything that they see in society already puts a label on them, right? So how do you break down the paradigms and the stereotypes if one, the mind you don't believe in yourself that you can be, right? We didn't get to the moon just because somebody said we could go. It was thought of, right? The desegregation piece didn't happen just because it was fought for. Somebody said that this wasn't right, and there were actions that were put into place. To hear those critical things, I think we as people tend to take the time frame of adolescence for granted, right? When that's the most critical and crucial part, when we absorb so much more, right? If you look at musicians, for example, I've always heard that it's better to learn when you're young to do those types of things, because you're able to receive it. Your mind doesn't go in so many directions early on, so you're able to absorb so much more by being taught in those stages. So I attempt to do that every day, to put that into practice with my kids. Like, you can be, but just because I'm saying it doesn't mean that it's going to happen. I'm telling you that you can be, but you still have to get up and do something in order for that to come to pass, right? And I think those are the pieces that need to continue to happen throughout our communities, so that the change can be seen and be relevant in today's world.
Can I give you something to think about? You are that. This is why you have to get up and do this. Because our kids become who we tell them they
Right.
are. You know, you are brilliant, you know, so you don't have time. You shouldn't waste your time trying not to do your homework because you're gonna have to do it anyway.
Right.
But you are brilliant, so you have to do that. You are brilliant. You have gifts to share. You have a purpose. So you can't decide to not do something.
Right.
Because that's what you're here to do.
Wow.
And expectations is a powerful thing. A child will live up or down to the expectation.
And
That's
so
powerful.
to add to what you're saying,
It's true.
you know,
It's true.
it is. It absolutely is. And another advantage that I had was, and still have, is not only am I getting poured into, you know, you are brilliant. Like growing up, I was always told I was going to be the first black president. I'm glad I wasn't. Because
Right.
that mindset of you could lead the nation.
Right.
If that is instilled in your head growing up, then of course I'm gonna do my algebra homework. That's just, you know, whatever. But also another thing that I think drove success is watching my mother model the process. And you talked about it, Marcus, like seeing your mom work at 3 jobs.
Yeah.
You the hustle and that instilled in you. And now look at you. And your children are seeing you take an idea, invest in that idea, and go. My mom, I saw her. I knew she started her degree in theater at North Carolina A&T well before I was a blink of an eye. And theater, you know, really took off for her. But she also pouring into me about how brilliant I am, and you finish the job, go to high school, go to college. She decided earlier in her life that I have to model the process. And she went back to East Carolina University to finish her degree in theater. Now, not only did she model the process, but she took me along the way. So I was in summer theater. I was a part of the programs. I saw what college looked like. I saw college students. I interacted with them. I was a part of the plays. I was in those classes. I remember one time in summer theater, they let me take the test. And the teacher said, better do you I know you ain't studying, but college was a no-brainer for me because I had been there, I had already seen it, but I also saw that it wasn't an unreachable thing because I saw her do that. And the idea of just, you know, utilizing all of your talents that, you know, creation God has given you to whatever it is that you pour into, that's what makes you unique. That's what makes you brilliant. And so I would just sit here and be like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I like to draw. I like to do, you know, I like to paint. I like to write poetry.
Yeah.
How does that show up in the work that I do? You know, it shows up in many ways. It's public speaking, that theater side. I'm able to talk to large crowds and love it and enjoy it, you know, but even the people that I want to reach, it's, you know, I'm expecting it to be large crowds because I've had practice, but I've also seen the process model. So I just think it's so important as parents to remember how much you pour into your kids and how much we absorb it. And like you said, become or be allowed to become what we believe we are to be. So,
man,
it's just dope, man. It's dope. So this is why we're making a podcast about it.
Look, yeah, like I need my #1 fan shirt now. That's what I need. Go ahead and send that to me, Jaron, or actually I'll come pick it up from your house. I mean, that I'll do that too. Because I again, so much of what y'all are speaking to, I understand. But we don't hear enough of those stories, right? Or at least from both vantage points. And there's not enough dialogue between the two to say, hey, this is why I had to do. Oftentimes we just figure it out, right? Or have the assumption of this is why I think this took place, but there's no enough direct conversation to say this is what it was like. you know, I didn't know we weren't wealthy. I just I thought, every 7-year-old had to walk to school by themselves. You know what I mean? Like, because mama had to drive 30, 45 minutes to get to work ahead of traffic. You know what I mean? And the responsibility that is placed on children at that age is so great, but it's how it's conveyed. Right? But I understand now that, if I expect a certain things from my kids, to the degree that it's not that you can't do, it's to set you up to make you even better than what you have already going. There, you're still a child, but again, teaching the responsibility aspect or the accountability aspect, that again, I didn't really understand until I got older what that actually meant. My mama was stressed, baby, you go straight to school, you look both ways, talk to the crossing guards, so on and so forth, and then when school is over, you come or go get on the bus or whatever, to go to daycare or the Boys and Girls Club, whatever it is. I will pick you up at such and such time. And I remember always looking at the clocks, in those places, like, okay, mama's about to come. I need to go get my stuff. Like, it's not something she couldn't call me and tell me or text me and tell me. Like, I had to be ready.
Marcus, you're gonna make me cry because I know, being a mother, I know there were many days that it was a heavy burden to send you off.
Absolutely.
To walk to school, and there were many days that it would, to spend those long hours. I had a job once where I was a lumber grader, and I took my son to the daycare when the janitor arrived, and he was the only child there. It would be dark when I dropped him off, and it would be dark when I picked him up, and that was hard. That was so hard.
Yeah.
I
can only understand.
Moms, there were many days when,
Yeah, that she, and my mom always says she did what she had to. Yes. Till this day, son, I did what I had to so that we could. And it sticks with me.
Should be applauded.
No, it is.
Should not be a question.
Right.
It
is. And I understand, like, the part about it is that I understand. Right.
Yeah.
And what I take away from that is I only hope that my kids understand why I'm doing what I'm doing or saying what I'm saying now. Because it is hard, and times, even though that times are changing, situations are different, but things are progressing, not necessarily for the better, in an aspect of our community, right? So I'm not fearful.
A good time for this conversation.
Yeah. I'm not fearful for my boys. I'm fearful for how they will react, right? And in that instance, right, to where I want them to be able to process what's taking place, right? The potential of what's taking place, because we don't know when it's going to happen, but chances are at some point it's going to happen, right? And I want them to be ready, and that's one of the biggest things that I took away from my mother, is that she stressed things in a calm manner, but it was important. I've always heard educators say that if you whisper certain things, you tend to listen harder, and it resonates a lot more than as if you were to speak loudly and progressively, right? Because you have to actively listen to what's being said so that you can actually hear it, but it sticks. Mm-hmm. And my mother would always speak softly with important things, and it sticks to me. It has stuck with me throughout my life. What those conversations were. No, I mean, look, this is amazing. I can't believe that, I feel like I'm on y'all podcast. This is not the Unapologetic Hustle.
But when you talk about your sons and that word react, I heard something this morning that I want to share with you.
Yes, ma'am.
It's from a book called Fearless. I don't have the book, but I heard someone talking about the book, and they said the same letters in the word react create the word create, make the word create. You can get the same word create out of react. So before we react, we can take the time to create a solution that we would love, as opposed to reacting. And I just kind of liked that idea. So I'm
gonna have to put that on a shirt.
Well, I can't think of the author's name, but I actually heard Ilyana Van Zant talk about that book. Wow. And I just passed it through. I just saw that much of whatever conversation she was having online this morning.
That's awesome. Hey, look, for those of you just tuning in, man, it's your boy Marcus Stone, a.k.a. Hustle. We're coming to you live from Globe Life Park, powered by Fishbowl Radio Network and Bashani Radio app. My guests today are none other than Miss Sandra Jones and Jaron Jones of the Mother to Son podcast. We've been having a great dialogue, but like everything in life, we got to pay some bills. So, time has come for me to have to pay those bills. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with the second hour of the Unapologetic Hustle with the Mother to Son podcast.
We say listen, brothers and sisters. That's right. Tune in and listen to outrageous opinions, fractured news, shades of excitement, thrills galore, and general tomfoolery.
So come on and jump in with us as Deacon Flint, Uncle Todd, and G Money spin vintage vinyl every Wednesday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Central Standard Time here on FishbowlRadioNetwork.com. Jump in.
Podcasters and internet radio hosts, it's time to take your show to the next level. Hi, my name is Sammy G, a 30-plus year radio broadcasting veteran, public speaker, and voiceover artist. And for the last 11 years, now the proud owner of Fishbowl Radio Network, the largest and most listened to streaming platform and radio station facility of its kind. 2 years ago, I created a proprietary system to help podcasters and internet radio hosts learn how to program their show like the pros, build a constantly growing and loyal fan base, and monetize their show. I teach this system every 6 weeks via Zoom to individuals all over the world. The Behind the Mic Masterclass is 6 one-hour classes that will finally take your show to the next level. Call today, 817-633-4880, 817-633-4880, and reserve your seat for the next Behind the Mic Masterclass.
On September 11th, 2001, nearly 3,000 Americans lost their lives, including hundreds of first responders who stepped up when our country needed them the most. We're seeing that same bravery from our frontline workers who risked their lives battling an invisible enemy. The sense of unity displayed in the days following 9/11 and during our current crisis exemplifies the strength of our national character and inspires us to honor the legacy of those lost as well as those who still lead the charge.
Hello, we are It's About the Kids Incorporated. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization that operates out of Dallas, Texas.
Our mission is to focus on the kids of today who will become the youth of tomorrow and the adult of the future. Today, tomorrow, the future.
Empowering the community one family at a time.
You can reach us at all social media platforms at It's About the Kids or online at www.itsaboutthekids.org.
Where we mentor a child, save a life.
Hi, it's Olivia Munn with my shelter pets, Frankie and Chance. Say hi, guys. When I adopted them, I discovered that they both have incredible personalities. Chance's sole purpose in life is to love and to be loved. Frankie is a little bit of a scoundrel and always entertaining. They're a little bit of a lot of things, but they're all pure love. Adopt pure love at theshelterpetproject.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, the Humane Society of the United States, and Maddie's Fund.
UFBRN.US. Your voice matters. Jump in.
Jones. Yes, sir. How you expect to be great, but your hustle don't match. Listen. I hustle overtime, attempt to push the culture forward. This that real shit. Make a meal with that little gift. Everybody on a hustle, we can make a real shift. So keep your head up, youngin', and just keep on moving. And if you ain't hustling, then I don't know what you doing. The time is now. I'm sorry, I'm not sorry. Yeah. I gotta write my story. No, you can't have my glory. I'm taking all that's for me. Unapologetic soul.
Man, this is the Unapologetic Hustle, man. We're coming to you live from Globe Life Park, powered by Fishbowl Radio Network and Bashani Radio app. And I gotta say, man, today has been nothing short of amazing. My guests today are none other than Miss Sandra Jones and Mr. Jaron Jones of the Mother to Son podcast. And I hate that we only got 2 hours. I kind of want to, extend this a little bit because I wish I could get my mama on here so we can do the first episode. Like, what was this like? Because I gotta say, I'm going to have some intentional conversations next week when I go and see my mama because like so much of this it resonates and it makes me want to understand what her perception was, what her mindset was at that point in time. But I gotta say, first and foremost, thank you, one, for being obedient, two, for having the perseverance and the relationship that you're willing to display to the world, because it is needed. There's so many individuals in similar situations that don't have this dialogue or the platforms to create this conversation, and it is truly remarkable to see, even though that it launches tomorrow. Like I feel like I've been watching you guys for like a couple years now, but it launches tomorrow, and I'm telling you, if I don't get a number one fan shirt, I'm making my own. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, Marcus.
Yo.
But, and just in our journey to this place, everything wasn't perfect. And a lot of things I didn't know. And I told my son, I'm doing the best I can.
Right.
I don't know it. This is the best decision I know to make, and so it's what I did. So we'll share a lot of those stories in our podcast, because we had a lot of them.
Yeah, something that I always tell my kids is that there's only one person that has walked this earth that was perfect, but we can all strive to be perfect. But in order to strive to be perfect, we have to understand what our imperfections are.
That's right.
So we have to learn from our imperfections in order to pursue what perfection looks like, because we are not perfect by any stretch of the means. I have my imperfections, but it's the inward look in developing myself that translates to the outward things that are projected in what people see of me, right?
Yes.
And again, those are nuggets that I've learned. I'm one of those that likes to observe, and I observe my mother. People will probably say, Marcus, you seem like you don't have an issue with talking. Well, not the case. But not the case. But I watch, and I learn from watching. And when those conversations come up, I'm not afraid to ask the questions. So I want to dive into some topics just to understand the perspective of the two of you. Like I feel like I've gained another mother, because I already Jaron is my brother for sure. But I feel like I have gained another mother in hearing how this came to be and understanding that you did what you had to do. So I want to start with Jaron. I know you're proud, man. I know you're proud of what you guys have or have created and being able to share those stories. But I wanna talk about I guess the aspect of the absence from others, right? Okay. Your mother was there in full support, and not in the sense just all family related, but the absence of other things, right? Because you had to do certain things because that's where mom knew you were going to be safe, what she could afford, whatever, Talk to me about it from that perspective.
Well, find out you Maury Povich on this podcast, right? Okay. About the absence of those other things, the way you framed it and worded it, which I'm very appreciative of because I'm learning right now, and sharing the story. I think so. We're talking about like the absence of being out past two, the absence of not being in potential spaces that could have caused harm versus help. I think that it helped me to understand structure, and that some things that can happen in life, I don't have to touch the stove to know that fire is hot. So where a lot of times if you're young, you hope that you can make certain mistakes and learn from them young enough where they're not still detrimental to your lifelong success.
Right.
There were several things that I was able to observe or be present, but it was the storytelling. And I will say, I have family members, I have friends who always talked about the mistakes, talked about what happened past three, talked about, struggles with addiction and drugs and things like that. So I listened. I didn't have to experience because I listened, but it was because it was told to me. So some things I didn't, I was able to say, hey, look, I'm not going to try that,
right.
Or I'm not going to take that path. And there were some things, and I will say too, now when I got old enough to feel like I was a grown man, and when I say old enough to feel like I was a grown man, I'm talking like 15, 16 years old. There was a lot of there's a lot of pushback of like, do things the right way. I'm heavily involved in community and church and in school, like you can trust me. And so it was just right. Like the me trying to be a man to prove manhood was very, let me make that mistake. And it's like, now that I'm older and I'm thinking about it, I was like, that was dumb. That was immature. That was an immature way of thinking of how you prove being a man. How you prove to yourself that you can do this on your own. That was very interesting. And that's why I think this is so important to do now, just like you talked about, stories make you want to go back and talk to your mom.
Right.
More stories. Because as you get older, once you form that understanding, you want to go back and give the appreciation. But also explain yourself. Like, I was wilding. Like, I really wanted to. I'm my own person. I got this. You put everything in me. I'm independent. You taught me how to cook, clean, fend for myself. When I go to college, I'm good. And I took it to the extreme of I'm going out into the world and I'm going to do everything on my own and be that man that, I know I am and was instilled in me. But the communication with my mom wasn't as constant. And so like now I'm learning, once you get to that pendulum, it's like, okay, sure, you're that, but you still need your mom. You still need to be present with your mom. You still need to be in constant communication with your mom, because if you have that relationship, you can grow from it. And so I want to explain that, like when we first come out of the house and leave on our own, you don't forget you got parents, you got people that love, care about you. You have to actively and intentionally keep that relationship. And there was a moment where, the world also be like, oh, you're a mama's boy. And I would be like, no, because
I knew it.
I didn't understand how to combat that when I first got out the house, and so it's like, what does that mean? And so then I had to form my own definition of what that was. And I felt that someone who was that term was someone who took advantage of someone's love and sacrifice for them. And I was never that. I was always appreciative. I always worked hard. And I should never be ashamed of having a good relationship with my mother. Even though there were challenges and things like that, which everyone has, I can own the fact that, yeah, I love my mom. Like, that's not a problem. It doesn't mean I'm less of a man. And if I take care of my mom and I take care of my wife at home, my family and friends, that's a positive adjective versus a negative thing. So I think that was just a macho thing that we have to combat as young black men or young men in general. And it's like, hey, how did that hurt your relationship with your parent? And you still have time to fix it. Yeah. And so that's, yeah, man. You got me, buddy.
I mean, look, I look at it like this.
A few battles.
I look at it like this, right? So, I try to reflect on history a lot, right? In the conditioning that has transpired, right? As society has it, men were of our color, our background, were emasculated so much to where, the compassion from a father standpoint or a male standpoint was not prevalent in a lot of ways, right? To add the systemic nature of creating the programs and things that remove fathers from the household, right? To in a sense to break down the home, right? So I don't want to take away what the situations actually were. I reflect so that I could understand, and that will help me communicate where I felt there were deficiencies, and have the lens of understanding. Hey, I understand you may not have had what you're trying to provide to me or what I'm providing to my kids, but where do we build a bridge over that troubled water that allows us to change that dynamic, right? Because the cards were stacked against us. Mm-hmm. Point blank period. The system was not built for us. It was built against us. So I understand, and Jaron, I'm like you. I was like, man, y'all can say what y'all want. I ain't no mama's boy. I'm X, Y, Z. I'm not. I felt like I had to be tough in order to please the naysayers, but not utilizing that to say, no, my mother has taught me to be what I am. What you enjoy and who you see is because of, and it was out of necessity. So I wanna kind of go in that direction to get your perspective on how those times have played a role in the decisions, Mama Jones, what you may have made, right? In the aspect of, I know there's certain things that were necessities, but also there were other things like, hey, I need you to be better here because so many others have not had it, right? Can you talk to me a little bit about what that was like for you raising a son in North Carolina?
Okay. Well, I'll go to when I went back to college. I had lived in when I went back to college, Jaron was 10 years old because I was 40 years old when I went back to college. Another thing I've talked to young mothers about, and I got a little lost. I'm sorry. Ask me again, please.
So can you tell me about or talk to me about what it was like for you to raise a young man with understanding how history has removed fathers from the home?
Sure. Well, that history really didn't have much to do with Jaron's dad and I. You know, it didn't play into that.
Mm-hmm.
We just did not make it, you see.
Mm-hmm.
But and he was conceived where I lived before I moved back home from Charlotte, North Carolina, because I wanted to be near my mom. You know, since things had gone sour, you know, I definitely didn't want to have a new child that was just like, whoa, you know, and
Right.
I wanted to be around the people that I was closest to. But anyway, so I had been raised, wow, there's just so much to that. There's so much in that question. But um, I taught Jaron. Jaron helped to take care of my mother and father when I would go to work, even before I went back to college. Jaron would prepare food, lunch for my mother and father. And so he learned how to wash clothes. He learned how, you know, to do all of these kinds of things as part of, you know, hey, these are our loved ones. We take care of each other.
Right.
You know, I had a sister to move home, but she worked out of town, and then my other sister had her own family as well. And so at a young age, he had to learn how to cook. He had to learn how to clean and wash clothes, etc. And as far as a man being in the house, or he had the privilege, thank goodness, the blessing of being around my own dad for those years, you know. You know what, Marcus? I think I'm so lost on that question because there are so many things going on in my mind. Because I'm all the way back, I'm way back there where Jaron was talking about being a mama's boy. You know,
I knew that was going.
I'm still back there. I have to confess, because I was gonna say I knew it. I knew somebody was trying to act like that. Because, you know, and I'm sure even in his life there were times I felt that. You know, because a lot of people don't have the kind of relationship we had.
Yeah.
You know, and I never tried to, I don't think, except when I was supposed to, boss my son. You know, people think a mama's boy. They think that you have a mother trying to tell you how to live your life. No, I wanted my son to be an independent, grown man.
Right.
I wanted to raise a man. I had heard many years ago that women spoil their sons and raise their daughters. I knew I did not want to be guilty of that. You know,
I've heard that
and
too.
So,
I've heard that saying as well. But I guess from my vantage point, and I got to stick up for my brother a little bit. Hearing mama's boy from the peers and from the community, you're looked at as weak.
And I know that was hard. And know what? I think I kind of stood back and let him deal with that. I didn't say anything, did I, Jaron? But there were a couple of young ladies in his life that I know they felt like, yo, mama. I don't know. You tell me, son.
Oh, Jay, how many young ladies you had that said, "Yo, you a mama's boy"? Now, I was talking about the community and the fellas on the playground, but mama said you had to go through the ladies coming home.
I don't know.
Yeah, so I think from a, and that's why we have these conversations, because we're looking at perspective from perspective. I never heard that from female, partners. I heard that from guys. I heard that from. But for one, that's why these conversations are needed, because you form understanding of, we all have assumptions. I had assumptions growing up of why my mom said or did things, and she had them as well. And so these types of conversations allow us to talk through them, unpack them, and be able to, know what, the understand each other's truth.
Right.
I'm glad whenever I heard it, I was little. I was in those teenage times. And then I think that planted the seed of when I went off to college. It was proving that that I wasn't a deemed mama's boy. But like you said, Marcus, you get that from society. You get that from peers who may not have had the best relationship with their mom. And had you stepped in when I was, outside playing basketball or whatever, that would have just validated their statement. So
Yeah, because look, mama always told me, boy, you better be inside before the street light come on, because you don't want me coming out, that little voice in the head, like, man, it's getting dark. You hear that buzzing coming. It's like, hey, y'all, I got to go eat, man. I got a test tomorrow. You know what I mean? Let me get in the house, because mama don't need to come outside yelling my whole name for the whole community.
How to navigate expectations from both sides. Like, you figured out a way I'm gonna make an excuse to go ahead. Oh man, I'm hungry. I'm about to get back to the house because I don't. Winterfield was a small town, so our park with the basketball court was probably a mile behind, our house.
Right.
I could hear that, Jaron. Because I just knew all the brothers gonna be like. So I made sure I was there for that name. I ain't never had to hear. And there were times where I was at the court where in my head I heard that voice and I listened and I left. And there were things that happened at the court after I left that, like you mentioned, you hear that voice and it's up to us to listen. And so I got that from my mom. So I don't know how we got here, but yeah.
It's so funny though, because I grew up in the, but of course that was a lot of years ago. Growing up, you didn't have the cell phone. You may not have had a telephone, and it was nothing for mom to come to the back door. And I love to imitate my mother saying my older sister's name, but it was nothing to hear her come to the back door. Fake ass. So I just saw that. I just heard that when you shared that. I never even thought about it.
Yeah, buddy.
From a young teenager perspective, that was the most embarrassing thing.
Man, what? Look.
Like, look at you. You gotta go. Your mama calling. Mama calling.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I enjoyed doing that too.
Man, look, I know my mama did, because she on right now. And let me go on and share something light, because she on here. So mama, when I come home next week, we're gonna have to talk about this. But mama used to be, I knew I was in good standing when she just said my first name. She was just having fun. But if I didn't respond, if I wanted to be a little rebellious, and then she said my first and middle name, I was like, all right, she getting agitated, But I knew if it had to get to my whole name, all three names, it was something else, boy. We gonna have a talk.
Don't let her have to come looking for you.
Yeah, she was coming. If she had to say my first and middle 2 times, that third time she was coming.
See that car pull up to the basketball court, she's like, Lord.
Yeah. Like, where he at? Oh, he gone. He left. Yeah. Mama, I was already on my way. I took this route,
But you know what? And as I get older, man, like you start to think like, man, why weren't other people's parents doing the same thing?
Yeah.
That's when you start to gain appreciation and learn one better understanding. And so part of what we want to do with this Mother to Son podcast too is allow people or remind people to go back and have those conversations where now, like, you can share that appreciation. You can share, things aren't perfect because perfection isn't reality.
Right.
We can talk about these things. And one thing that we've noticed too is that, as I've grown as a man, I don't know when this happened, but somehow my mom became my friend, and not, she's my mom and my friend, but it's more friend than parent. You know what I'm saying? And so the types of conversations we can have, the jokes we can laugh about the times where I was tripping.
Indeed.
You can reveal some things like what happened to my Lloyd Banks CD that I just
Mama, you over there banging Lloyd Banks?
Man, I was a G.
Oh, yes, I banged Lloyd Banks songs. Sure did. Banged it right on top of something and broke it to pieces.
Oh man.
See, I had borrowed Jaron's Jeep, and I got in the car, and as soon as I turned it on, the music went bam, and the words that came out, I could not believe. So that was the end of Lloyd.
She didn't tell me that though. So let's go ahead and tell the story so people can understand some of the stories you're gonna hear. So I just forgot she had even borrowed the whip, and my Lloyd Banks CD just disappeared, right? So I'm on the basketball team, I'm on a football team, you know, and so one of the things, you know, I was one of the lucky few who, you know, my mom worked hard and I worked hard, you know, to get my first car. And so I would drop off teammates. You know, that was a normal thing. Whoever got it, you share those resources. So in that case, it was good. Man, so I'm in the car and I'm looking for like a week. I'm asking my teammates, I'm like, hey, man, anybody see my Lloyd Banks CD? And nobody said, so I'm getting mad because I'm like, man, I ain't even asking for gas money. I'm just, you know.
I just need my CD.
Like, what meant more to me is I went, when Lloyd Banks, it was More Money in the Bank, G-Unit, that was the name of the CD. Target would sell the unedited version. And because I had a little chin hair by that time, I went to school. Before school, I went to Target and tried to look as old as I could so they wouldn't card me so they could sell me the parental advisory version of this CD, right? It worked. Man.
It was not the parental advisory version.
No, this is the one that it has the version on it. It tells you, parents, don't let your child have this if he's under 17.
Right. Okay. Right.
So I had that one. I'm telling you, this thing was great. It worked. I got to school on time. I'm blasting. The package smelled like money, bro. I was like, this is great. You know, I'm chilling. You know, I had the CD. Not many people burn them, but I had the real one, right? So when that thing disappeared, I was like, what is going on? It was probably 10 years later.
Wow.
No. When we laughed about it. But probably 3 months later, my Lloyd Banks case disappeared off the shelf. Because, you know, you had an album cover, it's in a 16-year-old mind. I see it in the trash. So I'm like, hey, man, you know, what am I seeing? My bank, you throw this away? And she said, yeah, and I threw away that CD too. My eyes lit up, and I was like, it was you.
Yeah.
And she was like, yeah.
Hey.
But I didn't get it.
Sometimes a mom's got to do what a mom's got to do.
We laugh about it now.
Oh, that's straight comedy. That's straight comedy. Y'all got me in the studio in tears laughing right about now, man. Yo, I'm sure. Look, now you got me thinking like, what I'd had come up missing that my mama probably got a hold of. I'm like, goodness, man. Wow, y'all got me on that one. Y'all got me on that one.
I will say too, man. There was for me, there was a very important poem that my mom would perform called Crystal Stair. And when I would watch her Mother to Son.
Yeah, it's not
lines. Life for me ain't been no Crystal Stair. And they used to drive me to tears to see my mom perform it, and it still does. But it's a very powerful poem, and it is the reason why we entitled the podcast Mother to Son podcast through our company, you know, Live Mighty. But I don't know if you have the poem with you, but I think we would do everyone a disservice if you didn't read that poem. Go perform that. Because
Well, I I know that poem, but
Oh,
it's
come
funny
on, bless
because
me,
when I
mama.
was a
Come on
student
now.
at A&T, when I was a student at A&T, my director used to say, "Now you have to get your really deep voice or something." He would say, and I would get this really deep voice. And then one time Jaron had asked me to say I was saying the poem to my son, and I realized, wow, I am this mother now. I don't have to put on a character. This is really my truth. But it's by Langston Hughes, and the name of it is Mother to Son. Uh-huh. So, did you want?
Yeah, come on, come with it.
Okay.
Look,
Oh,
I'm
okay.
ready.
To this camera. Well, son, I tell you, life for me ain't been no crystal stair. It's had tacks in it and splinters and boards torn up, places with no carpet on the floor, bare. But all the time, I've been moving on and turning corners and reaching landings. Sometimes going in the dark where there ain't been no light. So, boy, don't you turn back. Don't you sit down on the steps because you find it's kind of hard. Oh, don't you fall now. Because I still climbing, honey. I still climbing. And life, for me, ain't been no crystal stair. Still gets me.
Man.
Wow.
I don't know, man. It was something about that poem. When you feel tired, remembering the sacrifice of your parents or whoever it is that was providing and trying sacrifice to take care of you, like that has helped me in some dark spaces where I didn't feel like I was tired. And I was like, I'm good. I'm gonna stop. But it's like, nah, you can't. Like, and I'm just a kid or a young man without children. So it's like, I don't have the excuse to stop,
Right.
But, seeing her model the process, it just, I don't know, work harder. That was always like, work harder and appreciate her hard work. And so, yeah, man, that's where it came from.
Wow. That's
yeah,
that's
sometimes
amazing.
people don't know the story.
Right.
Because the story is we make it in spite of, in spite of so many things that play into our lives. But the thing is, the beauty is that we can, because there is a power greater, and there is a life that is ours that is far beyond our circumstances. A lot of times, something you said earlier, Marcus, it's not about looking outside, it's that inside. And when we go to that place, because for some reason today, this poem is really making me think about my own mother.
Right.
And what her life must have been, what her burdens must have been,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah. So we come to these places and we make gains in life, and people think, oh, you just got it made or you did this. They don't know the story. It's that story. What did you, if I would go to church, I would say, you don't know the cost of the oil in my alabaster box. Somebody could ask that question. You don't know the price I paid for this. You don't know that when I went to college and then had to go to my tech class at night and then go to a job.
Yo, that's that's deep. And it resonates because I'm sitting here thinking about what the journey has been. I can understand what my journey is, but to reflect on what the generations before me, what that journey was like, right? We all take steps, and we all leave these footprints, and these footprints are the foundation of what our legacy will be, and it's in those footprints. If your feet aren't bruised, banged, swollen, by the time your currency is up, and that currency being time, then what have you done? What have you done?
And the beauty of this journey for all our ancestors, our mothers and grandmothers, and our parents, we can't let society take that story away from us, because they did it with dignity. They did it with pride. They did it, with love and great compassion and unity.
Yes.
Unity. Oh, we had community. We used to have community. All these stories that are getting played back at us, that's not our narratives. Those narratives have been put up. It's like crime on the news, 6 o'clock news. You're gonna see if Bubba robbed the convenience store.
Right.
And then on some show like 2020 or something down the road, you're going to see where some white person killed 500 people buried in the yard. I'm being extreme. But, and I don't know that, I'm not trying to go there, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's just that we have to recognize how our narrative, how the story is played to us. You say, well, I didn't see that on the news. That man killed all those people and buried them in his yard, and we didn't see it on the news. But every day, you can see any kind of crime. Crime looks like Black people,
right?
According to the 6 o'clock news. So those are the kinds of things we want to talk about as well. Just to help our children know how to think and receive our story. Absolutely. We have to tell them our story in another way. They see it in us. They see it in us, so that's our proof right there. You might see that on TV, but you know how we live. And so that's not our truth. So people are people no matter what color, and people do all kinds of things. So these are the people, the people in your home that's talking to you right now. I feel like I'm talking too much.
I like what you're saying, because right now we have the opportunity to not have a middle person tell our stories.
Right.
Like, Marcus, what you're doing with your podcast, the Unapologetic Hustle, and the interviews that you give, it's a direct line from the source to the audience,
Yeah.
So you mentioned, we don't need a 6 o'clock news. We are able to be that. This is what you're doing right now. This is what we're locked in on, using technology and our platforms to tell authentic stories that represent us and our life and our experiences, so we see a broader scope of our reality. So
absolutely,
I'm excited for the podcasting, the fact that not only I commend you, brother. I love your hustle, and the fact that you're on Facebook Live, you're on Fishbowl Network, and you're anywhere a podcast can be. Yeah. So you put it out where anyone can receive that story straight from the source. And we got to continue to do that,
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. I often, it was earlier this year that I would hear community a lot. And it took a while for me just to sit back and think about what that meant, right? Because as a teenager, I would hear unity. There was a lot of inflection and focus on what unity meant. But unity is also in community, right? And what I took from that was that, one, we have to be unified in order to progress. But we unify in the common aspect is what I term com to be, whether it's communication, whether it's common thought processes, whether it's common goals, common visions, whatever that case may be. You have to align yourself in the common aspect to bring forth the unity to then go forward, right? So it wasn't when I hear the saying that it takes a community to raise a child, it took a different meaning, right? There were common things that happened in those communities. Parents had to work. There were some that went without. And it was a common thing that brought them together to where they unified to take care of that village, to take care of those children, to take care of those beings in that community. And that's one of the main things that I'm striving to get back, to pour back into the community, because it takes a village, it takes a community to raise. I have kids, and I can't do it by myself. So I don't know it all. I understand that I have imperfections. Some others may be better at things than I am, and I need that insight. I need that experience. I need that tutelage. I need that education. I need that resource so that my kids can have it better than I have it. And then that their kids can have it better than they have it, right? The generational piece. That's the wealth that I'm looking for my legacy to be. Not all monetary. Monetary is great to some extent, but hearing your guys' story, the wealth, Mama Jones, that you poured into Jaron at an early age, to see Jaron exceed educationally what many don't, right? And the fact that he understood what you were doing and what you had to do in order for him to be who he is today, it speaks volumes. And again, it makes me think of the times with my mother. I am not the unapologetic hustle without my mom. Point blank, period. Because I looking back, I've gained so much from the wealth that she's poured in that aspect.
Yeah.
So I did grow up wealthy. I grew up wealthy. I grew up wealthy in love, education, and striving for my greatest. So again, I can't say it enough. I thank you for wanting to share your story to the world, and know that y'all will always have a place on this platform and any other platform that I got to share that message, because it hits home for me 100%. And I salute the both of you for that. Indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you. You know we're getting you in your podcast. Yeah. You know, what's interesting too.
Thank you so much.
You know, one thing that's interesting too is how you and I met. You know, we work together outside of the podcast game, but we met, and it didn't take long to see and feel there was an understanding there.
Yeah.
We had a shared understanding. We didn't know what that was, but the more we share stories, you know, where it might have initially been like, you know, podcasting, entrepreneurship, community building, we're also even just like right now understanding it was upbringing, it was relationships that are similar.
Right.
So you start to realize that you find like people. And though the experience is different, like you said, there's a lot of common unity in those experiences. And so there's some things that we don't have to say, they're kind of understood.
Right.
And it almost allows us to go exactly where we need to go. You want to do a podcast? Let's do it. How can I be on it? I'll jump on it. And likewise, like that, it's, you know, let's build together. Let's grow together, because we understand where to go. There's a shared
community has a long reach right now, doesn't it? we're making community online, you know, virtually now, you know, so we have a great outreach. That's a good thing.
One thing before I leave too, you know, I wanted to ask you, Marcus, have you noticed that now in your older stages, you are your mother's biggest cheerleader? Like, it seems like it's flip, right? You be like, my mom just be chilling, like she ain't done, yada, 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 yada.
Yo, so look, a funny story, and this happened today, right? So, I mean, like, I come into the studio to get ready, and my mama tunes in faithfully. Well, my mama shot me a text message and was like, "Hey, yo, I need such and such because I'm trying to do such and such." I'm like, and I told my people here at the studio, I was like, my mama watched the podcast too much because mama out there trying to make moves. And she like, "Hey son, this is what we about to do," you know, like. And I'm like, it took me back. And I'm like, I had to sit back. I'm like, yo, okay, I see it. She putting the pieces together. I was like, all right, bet, let's get it. How do we go about doing it? So she had the whole game plan. I'm like, all right, bet. So yeah, I'm like, let's get it. You know, let's get it. I'm ready. I'm ready.
Awesome.
She hustling. She hustling.
It's interesting how it turns and changes. It's just like, all right, cool.
Yeah. I'm like that. You know, it's not crazy, but it's a full circle, right? Because you learn from if you open your mindset and you open your eyes and you listen with both ears, you learn from every situation, regardless of age, race, ethnicity, whatever the case may be, right? And today, what happened right before the show, that was that came full circle again for me, was that, you know, what this platform is and what it strives to be went back to the individual that helped mold who I am, and she's still doing it to this day, right? In various aspects, but the gems that she's utilizing are things that she's taught me, but I've taken it another step. I've put my piece into it, who I've become, but now she's getting better and reinventing and going forward. So it's like you have to listen with both ears. And when you do speak, you have to speak purposefully and intently, because somebody's always listening, right? And then your actions have to resonate with what your vision and your goals and your purpose are. Because if they don't align, then your story it becomes irrelevant. And we have to remain relevant to tell our stories because they are authentic. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So look, yo, for those of y'all just tuning in, I know I haven't been checking in with y'all because this conversation has been amazing, but I'm your boy Marcus Stone, man, host of the Unapologetic Hustle, aka Hustle, and my guests today have been none other than the amazing Miss Sandra Jones, Mama Jones, and my brother Jaron Jones. They are the creators of the Mother to Son podcast. And if you did not pick up on it earlier, go back and watch and listen to it. The inspiration for the title came from the Mother to Son poem from Langston Hughes, one of my favorite poets. And I wanna give y'all this opportunity to provide some closing remarks, but also how can people tune in? How can they reach you? And so that, you know, they can be inspired just as I am about your stories.
Well, for those who want to follow us, what we're doing is we're going to push it through the I Live Mighty company that we've started. For those who are unfamiliar with Live Mighty, it's a social media, Facebook. It's a space where you get motivation, inspiration, grounded within your story, and authentic stories and wisdom from spaces that we understand where we got that wisdom from, but maybe life didn't identify it as such. So the goal with Live Mighty is to tell those stories that inspire and motivate with the intent of being very culturally relative. So we all, that community, understand how to live mighty. together across difference. So this will be an extension of Live Mighty. So it's kind of like, Live Mighty presents the Mother to Son podcast. And it's kind of what we're talking about, Marcus, with what you do as an entrepreneur, own your masters, build it, build it and expand it. So, we're hoping that, Live Mighty continues to expand where maybe there are other podcasts, such as, Mother to Son podcast. But we're starting there. We're going to record our first episode tomorrow. We'll roll it out through Live Mighty. And then, so if you want to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, it's I Live Mighty. And so ILIVEMIGHTY. And we chose that because we want you to always, affirm. It's an affirmation. I live mighty. And so that's how we're going to do it. And we're excited.
Indeed. Mama Jones, it's definitely been a pleasure. You've done so much for me in this time than you probably will never know. And I thank you for coming on, being a guest, and pouring into your son the way that you have, because he is a true brother in many aspects for me. So I thank you, Queen, and I definitely see your work. I see you and your sacrifices, definitely.
Thank you, and to God be the glory too. And I want to say one little quick thing, because it's this day we know that Chadwick Boseman made his transition last night. And I just, that young man, to his family, his mother, his wife, I just wanted to call his name.
Yes, ma'am.
And Mom, this is that humble pie where I'd be like, well, you got to tell people about. My mother was in Black Panther. She was in the movie.
I was an extra, and I'm so grateful to have been in that piece of history. Yeah. I didn't meet him close up, but we were on the set on that mountain. So we were on the set every day for about a month. And he was just the most gracious person. And to see that he was dealing with this illness for 4 years, that means that he was dealing with it in the filming of the Black Panther. And so I was one of the extras on the mountain, but I was never close up to him. But he interacted with us because you wait around a lot.
Yeah.
And the drummers would drum and he would dance. And it was just a wonderful, just well-mannered people, he and all the cast. But I just wanted to call his name today. And we look at the roles that he's played. He has worked very intentionally to hold up the community, and to represent well. So I just wanted to call his name.
No, and rightfully so. Again, I wanna thank both of you for coming on, and giving me part of your Saturday to provide, your take and your platform to my audience. So thank you again for that. But it's come to that time, and it's time for your hustle moment. You know what I mean? So ready for it? Here you go. What are you willing to invest, or better yet, what are you investing in? Our daily lives require an investment, whether we realize it or not. Are your investments and energy going towards the things that reap no return on your investment, or are you wasting your precious currency in time by not building the best version of yourself? If this is you, then I encourage you to invest wisely and purposefully. Some of the most prominent people in history made this same commitment to invest greatly in being the best version of themselves. And that investment has transcended throughout generations, strengthening the legacy and response for the communities that they touched. Some examples of these individuals are Nelson Mandela, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Marcus Garvey, Madam C.J. Walker, Rosa Parks, and the late greats John Lewis and Chadwick Boseman. So don't continue to deprive your community and your legacy by not making the necessary investment in yourself, utilizing the most precious currency that we have in time. So that's your hustle moment. I'm your boy Marcus Stone, aka Hustle. It's been another great show, another great Saturday. Make sure you tune in next Saturday. You can catch me 11 to 1, Fishbowl Radio Network, Bashani Radio app. Till next time, activate your hustle.
Yes, sir. Yeah. They tell me all the time, Levi, what you got going on now? You always doing something. Always stay working. I just tell them, how you expect to be great, but your hustle don't match. Listen, the hustle unapologetic. Can't help it, I'm built this way, it's probably in my genetics. Refuse to live my life in debt, filled with all this bad credit. Been craving the sweet life just like I'm a diabetic. I'm too sick, so sick, I definitely need the paramedics. Almost there, I can smell it. Some of y'all pathetic, you get the game, but you never teach it. Nah, y'all never spread it. The difference between the fake and the real. See, I'ma tell it, only matter of time before I detonate. Greatness on another level, so I never take. He may not come when you want, but no, he never late. They wonder why I shine, where you know what pressure makes. Everybody ain't diamonds, I see a lot of y'all flukes. You can tell you don't produce because your tree don't bear fruit. And if you ain't war ready, we will cut you loose. For soldiers around me, I need more than just combat boots. See, the hustle is real, I hustle for a change. It been a drought in my hood, I hustle to bring the rain. I hustle to bring my generation about them chains. I hustle to make sure my mama don't have work again. I hustle for my unborn son and daughter. Hustle in every quarter, hustle to rearrange the order of my people. See me about to take back every single thing we lost up in these borders. I hustle overtime, attempt to push the culture forward. It's that real shit, make a meal with that little gift. Everybody on a hustle, we can make a real shift. So keep your head up, youngin', and just keep on moving. And if you ain't hustling, then I don't know what you're doing. The time is now. I'm sorry, the time is sorry. Yeah. I gotta write my story. No, you can't have my glory.